This video is sponsored by the Racing Warehouse in Lowell, North Carolina. Allow us to once again dive into the deep history books of NASCAR by exploring another team from the past and the rise and fall of what was Melling Racing. Many NASCAR fans should be familiar with a certain driver and number pairing, as this was where one of NASCAR's most popular drivers ever, Bill Elliott, spent a good portion of his iconic career. From 1975 until 1981, Georgia native George Elliott fielded car number 9 at NASCAR's Winston Cup Series for his son Bill Elliott. Modestly speaking, they were okay. Never got a win, but Bill put up some solid runs in what races their car could make. Between those 7 years, Bill Elliott scored 23 top 10s and 2 top 5s in 65 starts, driving for his father's Ford. In 1981, performance hit its peak for the Elliott family's racing efforts with the support of sponsor Mel Gear, a company owned by businessman Harry Melling, on board for the races they entered. And I guess Melling liked what he saw with the Elliott's racing team because he bought it. On December 1st, 1981, the sale was official and George Elliott sold his racing team to Harry Melling for it to hence be known as Melling Racing, and Bill Elliott would be remaining as the team's driver and he would keep racing as number 9 Ford starting in 1982. In the first year as Melling Racing, they made 21 starts with Elliott running number 9 Melling Tool Ford, where he would lead for 151 laps, scoring 9 top 10s and 8 of those were top 5s. For a team that was not full-time yet, they certainly ran each race they were in as though they should have been. There were admittedly a few hiccups in that first year of racing though. In 6 of those 21 starts, they did suffer internal disasters such as 3 blown engines, steering failure, carburetor issues, and a broken transmission. However, in 1983, showcasing Melling's line of oil pumps, Bill Elliott and the 9 team were much better as they attempted a full-time run in the Cup Series. 21 top 10s and 11 top 5s came their way throughout the 1983 season, and in fact, they stayed consistently in top 5 in the point standings that year as well. In only 3 races that season, they suffered internal issues, which was a massive improvement from the year prior. So much of an improvement that they found themselves contending for even more wins. In fact, Bill Elliott finished second 4 times during the 1983 season. However, this is where it gets interesting. With 1 second place finish in the 17 car back in 1979, plus those 3 second place runs in 1982, and the 4 second place finishes in 1983, Bill Elliott had finished second 8 times in his NASCAR Cup Series career. Then, in the 1983 season finale at Riverside, a road course no less, Bill Elliott got that first win in NASCAR's Top Series, and it was the first win for Melling Racing. Now the part that is the weirdest in all of this is how history finds a way to repeat itself, as Bill's son, Chase Elliott, would later go on to do the exact same thing, finishing second 8 times between 2016 to 2018 before finally picking up that first win at Watkins Glen, a road course again, and both came driving the number 9. Now back over to Melling Racing's number 9. It seems like once they got that elusive first win, the rest must have came easy to the 9 team. The next season in 1984, the 9 team saw victory lane 3 times, finishing 3rd in the points once more. But then in 1985, something changed even greater for the 9 team. During the 1984 Winston Cup Awards ceremony celebrating Texas Terry Labonte's championship, folks from NASCAR and Winston made an announcement that would forever impact how Bill Elliott would be seen in the sport. A revolutionary gimmick, if you will, but they proposed a new bonus concept for the 1985 season. If a driver could somehow win 3 of NASCAR's 4 crown jewel races, being the Daytona 500, the Winston 500 in Talladega, the Coke 600 in Charlotte, and the Southern 500 in Darlington, then they would take home $1 million. Probably seemed like a no-brainer for Winston to do this. I mean, what are the odds that somebody could actually win 3 of those 4 races? Well, it happened. Bill Elliott won the 1985 Daytona 500, Bill Elliott won the Southern 500 in 1985, and Bill Elliott won the 1985 Winston 500, the race where he famously lost 2 laps and still went on to make those laps up
under green, and
go on to win the race. And thus, in its first year, Bill Elliott won the Winston Million, forever enshrining to him the name of $1 Million Bill. Now you would have thought that after Bill Elliott cracked Winston's code in his first year that lots of drivers would probably cash in for years to come, or perhaps Winston would just say, okay, not doing that one again, when in reality the answer is no. Winston kept doing the promotion all the way until 1997 when they elected to no longer run the campaign following the season. For years, several drivers tried, but nobody could repeat Elliott's accomplishment until its final year, 1997, when the young hotshot driver, Jeff Gordon, would win it in its final year. A 13-year campaign and only 2 teams could win the $1 million, those coming in year 1 and in the final year. Those 2 teams were the iconic Hendrick 24 team and the boys from Melling Racing. On the subject of money, we talk about a lot of teams who have come and gone over the years along with their different cars, and it's always so fun to kind of keep their history preserved in these sort of time capsule type videos. And I gotta tell you, if you have some spare money, like Elliott and Gordon obviously did back then, there are a lot of great other ways for collectors to preserve their favorite NASCAR moments. Most people buy die-cast race cars for cars that they enjoyed seeing over the years, which I do too, and I love the many ones in my collection. But one of the more unique things that I do is collect authentic NASCAR sheet metal. And if you'd be interested in having your own unique pieces of NASCAR history in your collection, then you should look at my friends at the Racing Warehouse in Lowell, North Carolina. Now, I was able to go in and visit their shop a few weeks ago where I bought a piece from Alex Bowman's 2021 Ally car, and my goodness guys, my video there probably only scratched the surface of everything that they have. They had more in storage that wasn't even in the store yet. They have quite literally, as the name suggests, a large warehouse full of authentic race youth sheet metal, along with authentic team-issued crew shirts, fire suits, racing gloves, and a whole lot more. While you're there, be sure to check out the walls of the store as well, where you'll find items that are not for sale, but they serve as great museum pieces in and around the shop. Ask the owner, Eric Lawson, more about the items they have on display in the store. A lot of times, there's a great story for how they got there. While I was able to go see them in person, I'm not always able to go as I live in Middle Tennessee, and perhaps most of you are not able to go visit them either, which is why you could always check them out online as well, like I did when I purchased a sheet metal from Jeremy Clement's Las Vegas car featuring one of my best friends, Eric Estep's Out of the Groove logo. I've also got an awesome door from Trevor Bayne from the 2017 season, as well as a contingency panel from Austin Dillon in 2017, and I have an authentic race-used Sunoco fuel can from 4Sport Racing. You can certainly find your own unique ways to make your racing man cave stand out with the help of the folks at the Racing Warehouse. Go check them out online at theracingwarehouse.com, and while you're online, go to Facebook if you're on there, and be sure to join their Facebook group called The Racing Warehouse. Sometimes they do some unique Facebook-only auctions within a group. This is where you might potentially score something truly awesome and unique. Thanks again to the Racing Warehouse for sponsoring today's episode. But going back to that 1985 season, stats-wise, 1985 sounds like one of Bill Elliott and Melling Racing's greatest seasons ever at first glance. But this was not when he won a championship. Bill Elliott did win those 3 iconic races that season, but they did not stop there. The 9 team ended up winning 11 times in 28 races that season, scoring 18 top 10s, with 16 of those being top 5s too. They led for 1,920 laps, but yet, as good as it all sounds, it was not enough. It's not that Bill Elliott did bad when he wasn't winning, like Ryan Newman didn't do the greatest when he wasn't winning in 2003. It's just that his average finish was 8.7, and Darrell Waltrip was a little bit more consistent, especially in that final stretch of the season as he would win his 3rd and final Winston Cup Series championship. Old DW got 3 wins in 1985, but he had 18 top 5s and 21 top 10s, 2 more top 5s than Elliott and 3 more top 10s. On top of that, Waltrip had an average finish of 7.3 to Elliott's 8.7, and Waltrip was 101 points greater than Elliott in 1985. This was the first time in the history of the point system designed by Bob Latford where a driver would win 10 races or more and not win a championship. Say what you will about our current system, it has every right to be criticized, but it just goes to show that no matter the system, if you don't step up and give it 100% all season, no matter what you had done, if you don't succeed when a moment matters, you can still be costed a championship. However, all was not lost on the 9 team. It was still a great season. They made a lot of money, and their best days were definitely still ahead of them. In 1986, Elliott had a little bit of a slump, not really on a Kevin Harvick post-2020 level, but a slump no less. He only won twice in 1986, both wins coming from a season sweep of Michigan, which would actually start a run of 4 consecutive Michigan wins, as he would also sweep Michigan in 1987. But with just those 2 wins, 8 top 5s and 16 top 10s, it would result in a 4th place finish for the 1986 season. Now I mentioned 1987 where Elliott would once again sweep Michigan. Well, he would also pick up 4 more wins to have 6 total, including the season opening Daytona 500 for his 2nd time winning the Great American Race. Also, this was the year where where Elliott made NASCAR history with the fastest qualifying run in NASCAR history, hitting an average speed of 212.809 miles per hour at Talladega Superspeedway in a single car run. This is most certainly a record that will never be broken, so forever in history, Elliott and the guys from Milling will always have that one, as NASCAR mandated the use of restrictor plates for the following season to keep cars below 200 miles per hour on these big tracks. Now in the world of lower 550 to 650 horsepower and higher downforce packages, we may still see the occasional fast 200 mile per hour runs at Daytona and Talladega in the draft, but this is most certainly something crazy to look back on from the history of Milling racing and NASCAR. He also did record more top 10s than he did in 1985, and he was still pretty consistent with an average finish of 9.9, but he was second again, and this time it wasn't even close or debatable. They were simply no match for Dale Earnhardt in 1987. Elliott's team was most certainly the second best car, there's no debating the stats there either, but Earnhardt did exactly what Elliott should have done in 1985. Dale Sr. got 11 wins, 21 top 5s, and 24 top 10s, leading almost triple the amount of laps as Bill Elliott, as he led for 3,357 laps that season, and Earnhardt's average finish was 5.9 as compared to Elliott's 9.9. No other way around it, Elliott just was not on the same level as Earnhardt that season. But soon, and I mean very soon, it would be their time. Now, at first glance, Bill Elliott's 1988 season does not look like much, especially when you look at 1985. But his biggest flaw in previous years had been that his average finish was just a little lower than others. Because of that, that meant that the primary goal that season was just to improve there. Well, they did just that in 1988. In 1988, Elliott would once again score 6 wins. He'd score 15 top 5s, which was one less than his 1987 total, but he'd score 22 top 10s, 2 more than 1987. Again, at first glance, well, this almost seemed identical to the year before, but here's where he was aided. His average finish for 1988 was 6.6 versus 9.9 the year before. In all the seasons where Elliott was in contention for the championship, that was certainly his most consistent season yet. He was also aided in a much more evened out field. There was no two-headed monster like 1987 Dale Earnhardt this time, but while he didn't have that, he had the almost mirroring Rusty Wallace hot on his heels. In fact, stats-wise, Wallace was better. Rusty Wallace also scored 6 wins in 1988, but Rusty scored 19 top 5s, 4 more than Elliott, and he scored 23 top 10s, 1 more than Elliott. But, as I mentioned, it was important for Elliott to improve his consistency, and that's where it mattered. Elliott's average finish in 1988 was 6.6, while Wallace was 7.1, and thus Bill Elliott would end up winning the season championship with just a touch more consistency, finishing only 24 points ahead of Rusty Wallace. By the 1980 standards, this was an incredibly close and well-fought points battle. They had done it. They were on top of the world. What started off as a family-owned operation of George Elliott for his son Bill had grown into a championship-winning team with the support of Harry Milling's investment into the program. But I'm afraid that once they hit this peak, it would not take long to fall shortly after this. The team was unable to defend their championship in 1989, with Elliott winning 3 races with significantly fewer top 10s and top 5s, and it would result in Elliott finishing 6th in the standings after finishing 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th for the last 6 seasons since they went full-time. In 1990, the wins were even fewer, with only 1 victory coming at Dover International Speedway, but with more top 5s and top 10s, Elliott did finish 4th in the season standings. In 1991, things changed even more. For the last several seasons, Coors had been on board with a signature red look for their sponsorship, but then they changed their sponsorship to Coors Light, and Elliott's number 9 donned a new blue look. Unfortunately, with this new look came a less than stellar year, with Elliott only scoring 1 win in the 1991 Pepsi 400 at Daytona. Along with that, we only saw 12 top 10s and 6 top 5s, with Elliott finishing 11th, not even in the top 10 after contending for championships only a few short years ago. As fate would have it, this would be Bill Elliott's final season with the team, and oddly enough, Bill Elliott's 1991 win was not his last time winning, but it was the team's final victory, and for Elliott moving over to Junior Johnson's number 11 of Budweiser, and then McDonald's with his own 94, followed by Ray Evernham's red number 9, this would be the only time that he'd win in a car that was not painted red. An odd and obscure fact for sure, but a fun one nonetheless. As I mentioned, after winning 34 races in 9 seasons, when Bill Elliott left the program, Milling Racing was never the same again. Elliott was a big factor in keeping sponsors the way that they had, and when he left, Melling Racing didn't have a full-time driver for many seasons, and they did not even run full-time every year either. From 1992 to 1994, 8 different drivers would pilot the 9 car. Chad Little, Dave Mater, Phil Parsons, Dorsey Schroeder, PJ Jones, Greg Sachs, Joe Rettman, and Rich Bickle. I swear, side note here, what's up with Rich Bickle and Joe Rettman? I swear both of these guys somehow, someway ended up driving for almost every team in the 90s, I swear. Like they're the very definition of part-time drivers and decent equipment. I swear they end up in like every single Rise and Fall video I do. Anyways, just an observation I made there. During that time though, Rich Bickle made 10 starts for the team, while Chad Little made 15 starts for the team, making them the 2 drivers with the most starts during this time period, and the 9 car would only record 3 top 10s and 44 starts over 3 seasons, one of Chad Little, one of Phil Parsons, and the other of PJ Jones. Then in 1995, one of the team's final full-time drivers would join the team with a new sponsor, Spam. This was a nice look for the car. I feel like a lot of people, if they think about Spam's time in NASCAR, they certainly have to think about Lake Speed and Melling's number 9 Spam Ford. You know, I'm not the only YouTuber to talk about the Spam car in NASCAR. It played a big role in the life of Slapshoes. In his video titled The Absolute Brilliance of NASCAR Marketing in the 90s, he goes into more detail about that. When you're done watching this video, well, of course I'd love for you to watch something else from my channel, but I'd also recommend checking that one out from my buddy Slapshoes too. As for Lake Speed, they were able to have Spam on board 9 car in 1995 and 1996, scoring 2 top 10s in both seasons, with Speed finishing 23rd in both years as well. Keep in mind at this point just how quickly the sport was getting away from Melling. Going into 1997, it was almost 10 years since the team won a championship with one of that era's greatest drivers ever, Bill Elliott. Now, 10 years later, Elliott left the team and was now owning his own team at this point. They went for 3 years not even racing full-time, and now that they finally had enough funding to go full-time again, they were running mid-pack. To say the peak of Melling was long gone would be an understatement. And as much as it would have made sense then to cut ties and get out, the team carried on. Spam had left the team prior to the 1997 season, and the team was put in a situation where they were without a primary form of funding, and thus they did have to skip races again in 1997, with Lake Speed making 25 starts and Jeff Davis would make 1 start in a year at Sonoma. Then in 1998, one of the sport's more fun marketing campaigns happened when Cartoon Network was the team's primary sponsor. Unfortunately though, while the car featured kids' favorite cartoon characters, it was not all fun and games on the track for Melling Racing. The team was still struggling. Lake Speed's average finish was 27th, and then while in practice at Sonoma, Lake Speed was injured in a crash, and Butch Gilliland, the father of David Gilliland, would step in as a substitute driver for Lake Speed that weekend. Lake Speed would return for a final race at New Hampshire, and then as soon as the race was done, Lake Speed, after 20 years at NASCAR's top level of competition, would accept his NASCAR career as it was, retiring the following race, and rookie driver at that time, Jerry Nadeau, would take over for the remainder of the season, scoring a best finish of 15th. Nadeau returned for the 1999 season, and Turner Broadcasting stepped up their sponsorship even more, focusing on brands besides their Cartoon Network, seeing TBS, the Atlanta Braves baseball team, and WCW Wrestling on cars throughout the season. However, even with this, the team was still failing, and one of the final downfalls for the team was with the loss of Harry Melling following a heart attack on May 29, 1999. His son Mark Melling would take over at that point as the owner of the company, but as far as the racing team is concerned, I'm afraid that he had just inherited a sinking ship. Jerry Nadeau raced for most of the season in 1999 with the team, but he only scored 1 top 5 for the team, and that came later in the year at Watkins Glen. And this was the team's very first top 5 since 1991, but by the very next week, Nadeau had left the team to replace Ernie Irvan at MB2 Motorsports, and for the rest of the season, we'd see Rich Bickle, Steve Grissom, and Stacy Compton all share seat time in the number 9. Stacy Compton would return as the team's driver for the 2000 season, with Kodiak Tobacco Company replacing Turner Broadcasting and Cartoon Network. Funny, we went from a cold Coors beer years ago to Spam and kids programming, and now back to adult tobacco. Just funny how those sponsors over the years were so different from one another. Anyways, for Stacy Compton in his rookie season, things were tough. Compton did not finish any higher than 16th, and due to injuries, Compton had to sit out one race while Bobby Hillin Jr. drove in the 2000 night race at Bristol. Then finally in 2001, Dodge's return to NASCAR meant many new teams, including Chip Ganassi Racing, who we covered in the previous Rise and Fall video, along with the new team of Ray Evernham with driver Bill Elliott. Now originally the team was going to field Elliott supposedly in the 94 car, the number that Bill had been using for the last few seasons owning his own team. Gotta be honest here, the 94 and the way they had it designed incorporating this new font for Evernham did not make this number look good. Thankfully, out of respect for his family's old team and number, Evernham and Elliott asked Mark Melling to take the number 9, and in exchange, Melling Racing became an extension team of Evernham Racing Dodge Intrepids. And they took on the number 92 with Stacy Compton and Kodiak Tobacco still on board while Bill Elliott was back in the old number 9 car. Also making his debut as crew chief for the team was a still little known guy in the garage area who had connections to Ray Evernham, having worked on Jeff Gordon's car, Chad Knaus. Now obviously that guy went on to do nothing at all significant in NASCAR. I'm kidding, obviously. To start off the 2001 season, Compton qualified on the front row in second outside of Bill Elliott to open the 2001 Daytona 500, with Compton finishing 10th in the Daytona 500 that season. Melling would bring speed to qualifying, at least at the super speedways in 2001, with Compton qualifying on the pole in both races at Talladega as well. Compton would finish out the 2001 season, finishing 33rd in the standings with that lonesome top 10 to start the season and 2 pole awards, and as fate would have it, in the last race of the 2001 season, Bill Elliott would drive the number 9 car to victory lane at Homestead Miami Speedway in November of 2001, only this time with Evernham Motorsports, and it was the first time since he left Melling Racing that the 9 car would go to victory lane, forever establishing that the 9 was a true Elliott family number. Well, nobody look at Casey Kane and Marcus Ambrose, please. Melling Racing would try to make only a handful of starts in 2002 with Stacy Compton at the Daytona 500 and later in the season at Michigan with Robert Presley behind the wheel, but it was finally clear at that point that time had failed on this once great team in NASCAR racing, and their shop and assets were sold off to Arnold Motorsports for the 2003 season. The team did a lot over their time in NASCAR, and they helped establish one of the greats of the sport, but like all good things, it could only go for so long. What were your thoughts on Melling Racing? Leave your opinions down below in the comment section. While you're down there, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like so that YouTube will recommend it to more people to watch. And of course, if you are new here, I invite you to hit subscribe and click the notification bell so that you never miss a future upload. You might just like what you see next. As for my Danny B super fans, well, I certainly do appreciate your monthly support as a channel member to help continue funding content here on the Danny B Talks channel. Your contributions are always appreciated each month, and I really do appreciate that. Until next time, this has been Danny B, and I hope you have a great day. Bye guys.
Hey race fans, thanks for watching this video from Danny B Talks. If you're new to my channel, please be sure to hit subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss another video from my channel.